Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. This is Temple Talk, International Department of the Temple Institute, Jerusalem, Israel. Today, the 14th day of the month of Mar Cheshvan, 5776. It's October 27th, 2015. This week, the Torah portion of Parshat Vayera. We're reading these beautiful, amazing, outstanding Torah portions where there's so much packed into so little space. We're reading about the birth of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel. We're reading about the career of the patriarch Avraham, first of the three patriarchs, the one who left it all behind him. Last week's Torah portion of Lech Lecha, go out of yourself, go out for yourself. And this week we find him sitting in the area of Hebron as the Torah portion opens, and Hashem appeared to him in the plains of Mamre. And he sees three men that are actually angels who came to visit him. And, you know, I got to tell you, there's a lot going on here in these days of the what we could call the trickle intifada. It's being called the trickle intifada because it's in a trickle. It's constant. Yitzchak wants to call it. What do you want to call it before? The cameras intifada.
Yeah, everybody's upset about the cameras.
Everybody's upset about the cameras on the Temple Mount. We can't.
But they're the solution.
Yeah.
World peace via cameras. Better living through surveillance.
That's a good one. We definitely can't make light of what's going on, but we need to calm down just a little bit, or we'll just hit the roof. You know, Yitzchak, I just saw a news headline of a count of 778 terror attacks since Rosh Hashanah. Just today, unfortunately, 2 more deaths. Yeah. One of the casualties of the Armon HaNetziv attack passed away today. And earlier this week, actually, a rabbi who lingered in a coma since the attack on the synagogue in Har Nof passed away. Mm-hmm. And you know, I gotta tell you, I was walking this morning. I had a meeting in the old city. I was walking back here to our office, and I walked right past Kikar Tzahal, and I got here to the office, and I read in the news that just a few minutes earlier, just about the time that I was passing, the police apprehended 2 young Arab would-be terrorists, one in the possession of a knife and one in the possession of an axe. I showed you a photograph of those weapons, that they were about to pounce on Jews at a bus stop just at that area. And so it goes, and so it goes, and so it goes every day, that it becomes almost commonplace. That's why I called it the trickle effect, trickle intifada, because every single day we are getting these news reports about either attempted stabbings that were thwarted, or other attempted attacks that were thwarted, or attacks that were carried out where the casualty was either light or moderate or serious injuries. And it's going on and it's going on, and in the meantime, the machinery of the incitement of Abbas and of Hamas, it's all the same, goes on, and it's all legitimized, empowered, and enabled by the West, and in particular by the United States. This just in, Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, says that the mosque on the Temple Mount has always been there since creation, and that it was actually built by angels.
Oh, he said that, or
in the time of Adam.
Or he learned it from the Mufti.
Oh, I saw it in the name of Abbas. The Mufti said it?
The Mufti had said it.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the article that I commented on in the Jerusalem Post. I can't remember even. There's so many lies all around me. Yes, this is the position of Islam. The mosque that's on the Temple Mount was built by angels in the time of Adam. And in the meantime, the death machine continues, and Parshat Vayera opens up, as I mentioned, with Avraham. Now,
and some real angels.
A lot of the stabbings of the past few days, I can't even honestly count how many reports of soldiers that were stabbed, or attempted stabbings of soldiers or civilians in the area of Marat HaMachpelah, of the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron. First of all, I must say, Okay, I gotta get this out right away. This week, today's the 14th of Mar Cheshvan, right? Shabbat, this past Shabbat, Parshat Lech Lecha, was the 11th day of the month of Cheshvan. And everybody knows that is the anniversary of the passing of the matriarch Rachel, Jacob's wife. And just last week, the august body UNESCO, right, made a proclamation, a declaration, that the tomb of the patriarchs in Hebron, Marat HaMachpelah, the tomb of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the tomb of Rachel, our mother, are Muslim sites. Just in time for the anniversary of Rachel's passing, UNESCO made a declaration
Made her
that
Muslim.
these two sites of the Jewish people are Muslim only. Okay? All right, you want to tell me that the Muslims have a claim to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but Rachel's tomb, which is not even their mother, Rachel's tomb was always a Muslim site.
Not only that.
And I know how much they love their sites, because look what they did to the tomb of Joseph.
Not to mention the Temple Mount, but even 150 years ago, the Ottoman rulers at the time actually issued a statement, a proclamation that the tomb of Rachel is a Jewish site. That proclamation, that actual document act still exists today.
This is
Doesn't
all,
matter.
It all fits into the all-powerful,
jihad.
all-encompassing lie machine that is Islam, that is catered upon and fed to the West, and in the name of everything politically correct, and in the name of whatever expedience it is seen as, the Jewish people are totally marginalized, delegitimized, and ultimately dehumanized. Understand, this is their site. The tomb of Rachel, do you understand? This is their site. So look, getting back to Parshat Vayera and Abraham sitting at the plains of Mamre in the entrance to his tent, and we all know the secrets that are being expressed in these verses, too many to even review quickly. The unbelievable, huge Torah concepts that we are learning about in the first verses of Genesis chapter 18. How Abraham was actually disappointed that there were no wayfarers outside, even though he was on the third day after his circumcision, and he was suffering very greatly from pain. The pain that he was feeling from not being able to extend kindness to a stranger was even greater, and therefore God had to make it exceptionally hot that day so that nobody would be out, not to trouble his friend Abraham, who would have to get up and wait on people. But he saw that the pain that he was going through, that there were no wayfarers outside, was greater than the physical pain that he was suffering from his operation. And therefore God, after having changed nature once by making it exceptionally hot, he changed nature the second time, and he sent these three angels in order for Abraham to have somebody to bestow kindness upon. That in itself, we could spend 2,000 years talking about what that is all about, but I digress, but not really, because here's what happens. So he's going to feed them, and he's going to prepare a banquet for them, right? So he hastened to the tent of Sarah and said, "Hurry, 3 saws of meal of fine flour, knead and make cakes." Abraham ran to the cattle, took a calf tender, and gave it to the youth, who hurried to prepare it. Right? The sages tell us a great deal of what's going on between the lines in these verses, and they tell us that Abraham prepared 3 calf for the 3 men, and he was running to go and get the calves and have them prepared, and he's old, and he just had his circumcision, and it's the 3rd day, the day that it's the most painful, and one of the calves ran into a cave. And Abraham ran after that calf to catch it, and ran into the cave. And that, my friend Yitzhak, my best friend, who took a bullet for me in 1989 and saved my life when we were in the army together, that, my friend, was the
really
moment.
that old?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're pretty old.
Whew.
That was Abraham's discovery of the cave. The cave that became what we refer to now as the double cave, Marat HaMachpelah, the tomb of the patriarchs. He ran into that cave after the calf, and he saw there, inside that cave, lying in repose, Adam and Eve. And he knew who they were. And he felt what was going on in there. He felt that it was the entrance to the Garden of Eden. This is an expression in the Zohar. It's a mystical expression. It is not literal. And from that time, the Holy Zohar says, from the moment that Avraham inadvertently, by accident, discovered the cave by running after the calf, he pined for that cave. He wanted that cave. That's why he bought it from Ephron the Hittite. That's why he wanted to be buried there. Because he wanted to be part of that tradition. He wanted to be buried there. And the sages tell us that that is the entrance to the Garden of Eden. Whatever that means, because the Garden of Eden is not a physical thing, it's a spiritual concept. But here's the thing. I have two things to say about this remarkable midrash. One is that the reason that Abraham wanted to be buried there, next to Adam and Eve, he and Sarah, the reason that he felt he deserved to be there, the reason that he knew that was his place, is because he was continuing the legacy of Adam. Because he was, again, like we spoke about when it came to Noah, he was ready to take responsibility for bringing the light of God to humanity. That was his place. But
until then, the generations were running away from Adam.
Exactly. But simply put, on a symbolic level, I feel the deepest thing in the world about this secret that our sages are telling us based on these verses is as follows. What are they telling us? They're telling us that Avraham was running after this calf, sick as he was, old as he was, running after this calf to prepare a meal for these men who he thought were just wayfaring idolaters, but he wanted to bestow an act of kindness upon them, because that is what it really means to have a true religious experience. He was talking to God in the first verse, and he stopped that conversation suddenly. He left it as a dangling conversation, right? Hashem appeared to him, and then in verse 2, he lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, 3 men he perceived. So he ran towards them, and he starts talking to them. What happened to the fact that Hashem appeared to him in verse 1? We never heard another thing about that, because Avraham left him, as if to say, and this is an incredible Jewish concept. Listen carefully. As if to say, excuse me, I don't have time to talk to you now. I have to be like you. That's what it means to have a religious experience. It's not enough just to roll your eyes and say, ooh, I'm so spiritual, I'm communing with God. No, it's how you act in this world. So he left that conversation. He goes and he runs after them. He stumbles upon the entrance to paradise, okay? That's what they're telling us. It's the entrance to Gan Eden. You know what that's really saying? And this is the deepest Torah in the world. Open up your heart in the deepest way. The sages are saying to us that the entrance to Gan Eden, the path to Gan Eden, is through Maaseh Chesed, is through doing a good deed. In other words, how did he stumble upon the entrance to Gan Eden? Because he was trying to do something nice. He was trying to catch that simple calf, a simple act as that, and prepare a meal. That is the entrance to Gan Eden. That's how you get in there. That's how you find it, by trying to do something for someone else. That is what Avraham Avinu is all about. And it's such a bold, incredible statement. Had you ever heard anything like this in your life? That is what they're telling us. That is how he discovered the road to paradise. It's not paved through good intentions. It's paved through good deeds. But where do I want to take this to, Yitzchak? I want to take this to the fact that there, at the entrance to Gan Eden, right now, every single day, the monstrous Islamic murder machine is trying to stab as many Jews as possible there at the entrance to Gan Eden, as part of the package deal of utter unraveling of Israel's reflection of God's sovereignty in this world, as part of the package deal of total revisionist history. And their project, the Islamic project of total reclamation of Israeli history and turning it into their history. And in fact, another headline I just saw before we went to microphone now, Hamas says that Israel's existence is in contradiction to history, or whatever board games they play. All this is taking place. You see what happened this very month? Joseph's tomb is torched, right? All these stabbings going on at Marat HaMachpelah, the unparalleled controversy of the Temple Mount. These are, as you know, the 3 places which are significant of Israel's acquisition forever of this land. The only 3 places in the whole Torah that there's actually a record of sale: Joseph's tomb, the tomb of the patriarchs, the Temple Mount, these three places were purchased because they represent our acquisition of this land. And the amazing thing is now everything is all about the Temple Mount. Every excuse that you could think of under the sun for murdering the nearest Jew, every excuse. You don't need an excuse, say the Islamic handbooks. It's easy and fun. Grab a Jew, man, woman, or child, and knife them, dice them, run over them. That's what you do. But no, instead the world says, oh, it's because they want to change the status quo on the Temple Mount. Oh, it's because the Jews want to build the temple. It's because they want to pray on the Temple Mount. That's why they're doing this now. And unfortunately, to my great chagrin and utter repulsion and revolted disgust, there are a lot of Jews and rabbis who are buying that merchandise and are also saying, oh, blaming their own brethren, blaming the Jews who are going on the Temple Mount in purity and trying to be seen there by God. And yes, unabashedly, we have to admit we want to pray there. We've always wanted to pray there. And in fact, so do you. If you're Jewish and you have a Seder on Passover and you end it with the words, next year in Jerusalem, or you pray the 18 benedictions every day and you say, may it be Hashem's will that the temple is rebuilt. What in the world are you talking about? It's not a game. We're not kidding around. Of course the temple has to be rebuilt. Is that something that we're supposed to apologize for? Is that something that is a surprise to you, that we're supposed to rebuild the temple? So Netanyahu comes along and says, oh, that's a lie. We don't want to change the status quo. And I'm going to prove it to you, he says. He says, we're going to put cameras up that are going to record everything. Now, Kerry was very happy about that. He was very happy. He was very happy about that clarification that there will be 24-hour cameras that are going to record everything going on the Temple Mount. Oh, so Kerry was satisfied. And it was Abdallah's idea. And they're all very happy except for the fact that there's some confusion going on as of this recording as to exactly who is going to be getting the feed of these cameras. Is it going to be like the Kotel Cam where everybody all over the world can watch the Temple Mount all day? I think not. It's either going to be in the hands of the sworn enemies of the Jewish people, the Waqf, and there was already talk about them making some sort of a blacklist and deciding who can go on the Temple Mount and who can't. Not public figures, not activists, not anybody that they know about. They're going to be able to exclude them, or is it going to go in the hands of Israeli security? So they're all arguing now, and the Waqf doesn't want Netanyahu's cameras; they want their own cameras, and on it goes, and it's all about watching on the Temple Mount, which is really, really interesting, because at the conclusion of Abraham's 10th trial that he withstood in this week's Torah portion, and you'll hear more about that, I hope, in this week's video lesson, Abraham bound Isaac in this very place, and at the end of that episode, he named this place, he named it Hashem Yireh. As it is said this day, on the mountain Hashem will be seen. So we all think, reminds me of Robert Frost's great poem that I've had occasion to quote in the past 12 years on this program, The Secret by Robert Frost, Poet Laureate of New England. We all dance round in a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. That's it. So we're all talking about these cameras so that you can watch and I can watch and he can watch and him watching and me watching him and you watching him to see who exactly is inciting on the Temple Mount. But actually, Hashem is the one who is seen.
Hashem's the one who's inciting.
And he's in sight. And Hashem is the one who sees on the Temple Mount.
And all we want to do is be seen on the Temple Mount.
And because the Torah says, 3 times a year shall you be seen there by God.
So bring on the cameras.
Hashem is the camera.
Hashem is the camera.
Listen, I find it fascinating that each one of the 3 patriarchs had an encounter with the Temple Mount. And had some sort of close encounter with the Temple Mount. And in this week's Torah portion, we begin with the concept of the entrance to the cave, and we end up on the Temple Mount. And again, back and forth from the past to the future to the present. Tzipi Chotoveli, Likud member, God-fearing woman. She had the audacity to let it slip that she dreams of seeing the flag of Israel on the Temple Mount. She's a Torah observant woman. We like her as they come, these people, these members of Knesset. And she actually had either the slip of consciousness or the presence of mind to say, yeah, I'd really dream of seeing the flag of Israel on the Temple Mount. What are we reading about in the headlines today, Yitzchak?
Oh, well, the Prime Minister Netanyahu, in this one article on Israel National News, three different expressions. He gently rebuked her, gently chided her, he gently rebuked her, and he gently reprimanded her for expressing herself, because that's incitement.
He reprimanded
in his eyes.
Tzipi Chotovely from his own Likud party for saying that in her dreams she hopes to see the flag of Israel on the Temple Mount. He reprimanded her,
Imagine
so
if
she
she
was
said the Holy
forced
Temple.
to qualify her statement and retract it and say, of course I understand that this is not the policy of the ruling coalition. What's not the policy of the ruling coalition? To say, don't we have a film called Dare to Dream? Look it up on YouTube, Temple Institute, Dare to Dream. Don't we have a policy to say that there's supposed to be Israeli sovereignty on the Temple Mount? Netanyahu has now outlawed a member of his own Knesset party from even saying that we even ever should have any sovereignty on the Temple Mount.
Right.
So she had to say, oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. Of course I go along with my party's policy. Anyway,
Very
Netanyahu is a train wreck as far as I'm concerned. He has formally institutionalized the illegal situation of Jews not praying on the Temple Mount. Until now we said it's paralegal. It shouldn't be that way. The Supreme Court says the Jews should be able to pray on the Temple Mount, but Netanyahu agreed at this meeting with Abdallah under Kerry's brokerage that Muslims can pray on the Temple Mount, but non-Muslims can only visit on the Temple Mount. And he has, as if sort of anchored that into some sort of legal status now. So that is pretty bad.
Spoiler alert, Jews continue to pray on the Temple Mount, and they will always pray on the Temple Mount. No power on earth can change that.
Stay with us as we continue to pray on the Temple Mount. We'll be right back. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Ruven. With me in the studio, Rabbi Chaim Richman. We are the Temple Institute. Today is the 14th day of the month of Mar Heshvan, the year 5776. Also happens to be the 27th day of October in the year 2015. And we have been talking about the Parsha Vayera, about Avraham Avinu, our patriarch, Abraham, and his acts of loving kindness and his desire to do God's will and his desire to take up the mantle of Adam and bring God into the world and being responsible for the world for man's sake and for God's sake. Talking about what's going on in the country, the Temple Mount, and I just want to take a break from all that, but not really a break, as the rabbi would say. Taking a break from that, but it's not really a break.
I don't say that.
It's an expression that you use. You say something and then you say, but it's not really. It's a very effective expression. I've adopted it. Because this really has everything to do with everything, and that is that the rabbi will be next week in the United States. He'll be in the United States for a month, and he will be speaking many different places around the United States. And I would like to right now give everybody some basic information about the rabbi's upcoming speaking tour. And the theme of the rabbi's speaking tour is, appropriately enough, the real truth about Israel, the Holy Temple, and the Temple Mount. You can't get more on topic than that. The rabbi will be speaking. I'm just going to mention the dates and the cities he is speaking in. All the information you can find on our website, templeinstitute.org. You go to any page there and you'll find a banner that will, if you click on it, will take you to the page with all the details and contact information. You can also find the information on the Temple Institute's Facebook page. The rabbi will be speaking November 3rd in Bentonville, Arkansas. He will be speaking on November 4th in Denver, Colorado. 6th and 7th, he will be with Rena Richmond, both speaking, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's on the 6th and 7th of November, as well as the 9th and 10th of November in Minneapolis, a different venue, but Minneapolis. The 12th of November, Rabbi will be speaking again with Rena in Houston, Texas. That's the 12th of November. Moving on to the 16th of November, Rabbi will be speaking in Abilene, Texas. Rabbi will be speaking again in the 17th of November in Odessa, Texas. He's like an outlaw, a man on the run. He's here, he's there. He was last seen in this town, now he's in that town. What was that? I think Johnny Cash did a song to that.
Actually, all these towns are just aliases. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be somewhere else, but we can't tell you where I'm really going to be.
Whoa, now
but
that's
if you
confusing.
get to this place, there'll be a note on the door.
Okay, the last town I mentioned was Odessa, I believe. Odessa, Texas, the 17th of November. The following day, the rabbi will be miraculously in Rio Dozo, New Mexico on the 18th of November. The 19th of November, he'll be back across the border in Lubbock, Texas, where he will be again with Rena on the 20th and 21st of November, Lubbock, Texas. And please go to our website and get all the information.
And there may be some other venues in the
And there may be other
Northeast,
venues.
that last week.
Yes. Oh, I didn't mention the 22nd. The rabbi's final appearance of 2015 in Lubbock, Texas.
In Lubbock?
Yes.
No, not necessarily 2015.
No, in Lubbock, Texas.
Oh.
As the rabbi mentioned, there may be dates added, maybe on the East Coast. Who knows? Maybe somewhere, maybe in Ashtabula.
Ashtabula, San Francisco or Ashtabula.
You never know.
Well, there may be surprises yet. And while I'm away, Yitzchak will be minding the fort, and over the next few weeks, Yitzchak will be soloing Temple Talk until such time at the end of November and the beginning of December that Yitzchak Reuven will also be away from the microphone. We will be overlappingly away for about a week or so. And so I think the next, about 3 Temple Talks will be Yitzchak himself, which is always a pleasure. I know everyone enjoys that very, very much. I think the next 4 Temple Talks. No, the next 3. And then I think there might be 1 or 2 weeks that we're not here. And then we'll be back again.
Oh, yeah.
High in the saddle. I think this is really probably one of the most important opportunities that I've had to share about what's going on, the whole dynamic of the truth of what is going on with the Temple Mount that is so misunderstood, so maligned, and how understanding the truth is so important for every person, and the repercussions and the implications for every person of what's going on in Israel, of course, as usual. And
if I may add, Rabbi, I think the mantra that we need to keep in our minds and hearts is Lech Lecha, which was last week's parsha.
I can't believe you
which
said
is
that.
also repeated in this week's parsha.
I can't believe you said that, because I was just about to say that. We're so serendipitously connected. It's scary.
I know, yeah.
Here's the thing. First of all,
no point in me being here. You're here.
First of all, there's so many lies being propagated, and it shocks me that so many good people that really love Israel and that are really concerned about the truth, they don't even know what's going on. They don't even know what to believe. They don't even know what's being reported, and nothing is being reported that's even true about what's going on. But there is a process happening here that has a ripple effect all over the world, and America is intrinsically bound up with this, and it's so serious to understand. Yitzhak, you and I were talking during the break about the phenomena of being politically correct and how, it's like there's thought police, and you can't say certain things. Look, Chatuveli, Knesset member Chatavelli just said, "Oh, I dream of seeing the flag of Israel over the Temple Mount," and she got gently chastised by the prime minister for saying something that could be interpreted, God forbid, as a desire to see Israeli sovereignty on the Temple Mount.
Another minister in the government has been taken to task by the media for having mentioned in the past that Jews should have the right to pray in the Temple Mount. I mean, you're not allowed to say a thing.
And of course,
according to
all
these
of this is
people.
in direct diametric opposition to what it means to be a Jew, and to what the land of Israel is all about, and to why the Jewish people have existed all these years. So something's very wrong.
Bunch of Nimrods here.
Yeah, something's very wrong with the what do they call it? The coalition policy? Something's very wrong, because if you're not allowed to talk about the Temple Mount, you're not allowed to mention it, you're not allowed to wistfully say that it's your dream, and we're not allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. And again, the institutionalization of this is such a crime. And again, don't get me started, or can I get started about the Secretary of State and how his incredibly nuclear arrogance, ignorance, hypocritical approach to geopolitics, how he, on the one hand, talks about how the basic human right of every person is to be able to worship freely and express their beliefs, but not when it comes to Jews or Christians, by the way. Yes, if you're Christian and listening to this, you're also on the bad list, because non-Muslims can visit the Temple Mount, barely, by the way, and get away with their lives, but they cannot pray. America is pushing that agenda. This is what John Kerry forced Netanyahu to agree with Abdallah, and to make it clear, to clarify this position, and to put up cameras to make sure that Jews are not mumbling or saying Shema or moving their lips. I thought that is like the absolute opposite of everything that America stands for: freedom and democracy and equal rights and civil rights. Where's Rosa Parks? Where's the spirit of Rosa Parks? Let her come back and move to the front of the bus and say, wait a minute, Jews in their own land, in their own city, are not allowed to pray, and the only place where they're commanded to pray, the only place that's holy to them, and America is standing for that and demanding that Netanyahu does not change the status quo. The status quo is illegal. What do you mean the status quo, that only Muslims can pray in the place that is holy to the Jews? Yitzchak Ruven posted a video. I don't know if you have the stamina to watch it, because it's not an easy watch. Is it live yet, Yitzchak?
Yeah.
What's it called, that video?
It is called, I guess it's called, Muslims pray, non-Muslims visit.
Right. Muslims pray on the Temple Mount, non-Muslims visit on the Temple Mount. Muslims pray on the Temple Mount, non-Muslims visit on the Temple Mount. Muslims pray on the Temple Mount, non-Muslims visit on the Temple Mount. And you'll see exactly what Muslims do on the Temple Mount if you watch this video. But listen, you mentioned Lech Lecha, and I said that the perfect theme for my explaining why it's so important for me to travel now and explain to our friends in America that care about Israel and that care about their own future, because as usual, once again, as I said in Parshat Noach, I'm not worried about Israel. It's the safest place in the world. I'm extremely worried about America, where the last vestige of the divine image in which man was created is crumbling, and it's a state-sponsored crumbling. It's a state-sponsored divestment of the divine image that's going on in America. We talked about being PC, Yitzchak. I saw the most beautiful idea about Lech Lecha that I want to share with you now. It opened my heart in the deepest way. The deepest Torah in the world. This is the secret. Because, in all these Torah portions, we learn from the forefathers, and Ma'aseh Avot Siman Labanim, what happened to the forefathers is what happens to us. And these are secrets for every person. These are truths on a universal level for every person. And as we learned, Lech Lecha means go out for yourself, go out to yourself, go deeper into yourself, leave everything behind. That's what Abraham did. Leave it all behind.
Stay true to yourself.
And just be ready to go further. But what I saw explained, and one of the deepest things I ever saw in my whole life, you know what Lech Lecha means? You know what Hashem was telling him? He was saying, don't ever stay with one position, with one thought, and think this is how things are. Don't get stuck in one way of thinking and say, this is how it is. This is how it has to be. This is what I'm used to. This is what I'm expecting. This is what Hashem wants. Lech lecha means you have to move and you have to follow Hashem's will. However it goes, you have to follow it. And you can't, and that God does not want a person to be so fixated on how something has to be.
It's what a fossil.
This is how it is. This is if it's Wednesday, I'm having spaghetti, and that's, what I'm saying?
That's God's will.
This is what, it's not a good example. This is what it has to be. Lech lecha, Hashem is telling a person, you have to flow. You have to move. You have to keep on going. Don't get stuck in one holding pattern of your thought and think this is how things are going to be because this is what I need it to be. No, it's not up to you. It's up to whatever Hashem is dealing with you at that time. That's what it really truly means to be alive for God. And that's what Abraham was called to do, to change all his conceptions. And I can prove it to you. Because after he spent his entire career, as in his entire world, his entire life's work, is teaching people that what's abhorrent to God and how he's to be served, all of a sudden, Hashem says, good, now, this might be slightly embarrassing, now I want you to sacrifice your son. Which, of course, is, I realize, exactly what you've been teaching against all these years in your preaching. But now, you're going to have to travel, carry the wood 3 days, walk around, get up to that place. People are going to say to you, where are you going? And I guess he's going to have to say, actually, to tell you the truth, I'm going to slaughter my son. And they're all going to say, wow, that's really interesting. I thought you've been telling us that this one God of Israel doesn't like that kind of thing. And he's saying, well, I could be wrong. Whatever it was that he was saying, that in itself was part of the test. The test wasn't just, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Yitzchak, that I gave you at the age of 100, and slaughter him as an offering. The test was the utter turmoil and confusion and doubt and projectile angst that he went through, being told the very opposite of what he thought was Hashem. So there's so much in the Akedah that we don't even comprehend of what it was, of what it means, and why this is such a seminal event in the life of Israel, that we recall it every day, the merit of this action. I mean, was it just a game? Did he know the outcome? Was it just a setup? I mean, why did it so color the temple experience to the extent that this was like the forerunner or the cornerstone of the temple? The painting that's on display at the Temple Institute that depicts the midrashic teaching that at the time that Abraham bound Isaac on the altar, he was 37 years old, Yitzchak. He wasn't a young child. He was strong enough to fight back. And part of the test was Yitzchak's test. At the time that Abraham bound him, and then the angel told him to stay his hand, all of a sudden he saw a vision of the temple in that spot. And that is teaching us that Abraham realized that at this very place, his descendants are going to come and they're going to need to summon forth the same attributes that he had to deal with and deepen his personality in order to have this relationship with God. This idea of self-sacrifice, of responsiveness, of listening, and of nullifying your own will. That's what this whole thing represents. And again, each one of the forefathers, they perceived the Temple Mount in a different way. That very beautiful teaching that the sages tell us. And they deduce this from the verses themselves, right? From the verses. Avraham saw the Temple Mount as a mountain. He calls it the mountain. Hashem told him to go up to the mountain, one of the mountains that he'll show him. And he said, in the mountain Hashem will be seen. Yitzchak called it a field, right? Yitzchak lasuach basadeh. Yitzchak went out to meditate in the field. And Yaakov called it a house, a home. because he said, this is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And the sages speak about this very, very deeply, deepest Torah in the world, opening your heart in the deepest way, etc., that a mountain is less user-friendly. It's a challenge. It's steep. It's not much you can do with it. You climb it, you're there. It's daunting. It's not fit for civilization. A field is already cultivated.
You can chill in a field.
It is user friendly. It is something of benefit to society. But a house
that's where you go home
is
to.
a home.
Yeah.
And that's what Yaakov said. And ultimately, as we read in Isaiah, the final temple, the third temple, is the level of house. That's when the Gentile nations all said, come, let us go up to the house of the God of Jacob, it says in Isaiah. So in other words, the understanding, the connection that the whole world will have with the future temple is through the level of Yaakov, of Jacob. But the delineation of this experience, the process of how each one perceived it differently, is very, very compelling and very, very interesting.
Interesting how every one of us perceives the Holy Temple, the Temple Mount. Everybody, take a minute and think about it.
I think that this is so deep, this teaching right now, because Yitzchak Reuven, that is, I think that what we're all going through is something very similar. You know, the Temple Mount being so totally, obsessively...
It's a test.
In the news now, and how it's being interpreted and perceived. Obviously, some people see it as something very foreboding, very distant, very, very unusable, and a challenge. Some people are trying to get something out of it. It's a little bit more user-friendly. It's a little bit more cultivated. And some people say, no, this is our home. This is our home. And Maaseh Avot Siman Lebanim, the sages say, what befell the forefathers is a sign to come for the children. And this process of clarification, if I might paraphrase John Kerry, this process of refinement of the idea and understanding just how we relate to the Temple Mount is exactly what this nation is going through right now.
And as you mentioned before, when Abraham was walking toward Moriah, toward the Akedah, toward the binding of Isaac, and all these people were looking at him and pointing to him and say, you know, this is not what you taught us, and you're killing your own son, and had horrible things to say, who knows what. This is basically what's happening today to everybody who goes up to the Temple Mount. The people are actually pointing the fingers at yours truly, at all of us that go up to the Temple Mount and say, you're the cause of this. You're the one who's causing this bloodshed. You're the one who's causing the bloodshed of innocent Jews.
It's so sick
off.
That people need an excuse to blame on other Jews
but my
that are
point,
trying to
Rabbi,
do the right
is simply
thing.
that this is the test. This is the test. You know, think, everybody, think very seriously about your perception of this, because that's who you are. How you perceive to what's going on today is who you are. Just like when you saw Abraham walking to the mountain, what you said to him was a reflection of who you are, not who he is. So, you know, how do you relate to it? How serious is the temple? How seriously is it in your heart? How seriously do you want it and perceive it as being the place that God will establish peace? Because that will determine your perception of what's going on right now. And yes, as things heat up, and as that moment comes closer in history, things do heat up, and you know the sparks, they begin to fly, and everybody's got something to say. You have to be grounded and know where you're facing, which way you're heading.
And speaking of the J word, meaning juxtaposition, in this week's Torah portion, on the one hand that we're reading about in the beginning, the tomb of the patriarchs, and we're reading about the binding of Isaac that took place on Mount Moriah, in this Torah portion we also have the destruction of Sodom. And I think that this is opposite that. At Ze Lumat Ze Asah Elokim. I think that on the one hand we have the culture of the Temple Mount, we have the culture of Abraham, the culture of Chesed, and the culture of calling our resources to serve Hashem. And opposite that, we have, as I mentioned, the unraveling of the divine image and the destruction of civilization, and it's one or the other. That's exactly what is going on in the world today. And those that are aligned against the Temple Mount are the ones that are bringing about the destruction of civilization. Isn't that a coincidence? Yitzchak, can I take this opportunity, even though you always end the show, to say shalom to all of our listeners? I will be back, Bezrat Hashem, with God's help, at the conclusion of our November speaking tour. I entrust the wheel of the ship of Temple Talk to Yitzchak for the next few weeks. Hope to see old friends and new in the United States and share some of what is going on here firsthand. And may we all have only good news to report and share together the rest of the beautiful month of Cheshvan, Kislev, and the building of the Holy Temple.
Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.